I smiled the moment they walked away and left me behind, and no one noticed that my silence wasn't fear, it was calculation. They thought they had trapped me. Stranded, alone, and about to disappear from my own life. What they didn't realize was that every move they made, every lie they told, was about to become evidence. Because I wasn't just their daughter. I was the worst person they could have ever tried to deceive. And by the time they understood that, it was already too late. If you want to see how this ends, how someone loses everything and still comes back stronger, subscribe now and comment where you're watching from. You're going to want to remember this one. My name is Evelyn Carter, and for most of my life, I was the person people called when everything was already broken. At 29, I had built a career as a forensic auditor, the kind that doesn't just follow numbers, but exposes the truth hiding behind them. I could trace missing millions, uncover fraud buried under layers of lies, and dismantle financial illusions with precision. Patterns spoke to me. And I listened. But the truth is, the hardest cases were never my clients. They were my family. For years, I was the one who fixed everything no one else wanted to face. I paid off debts that weren't mine, cleaned up messes I didn't create, and sacrificed things I never got back. Not because I had to. Because I believed that's what family meant. And that belief was the first mistake I ever made. I just didn't know yet how much it was going to cost me. If you looked from the outside, my family seemed ordinary. Supportive, even. But that illusion only existed because I was the one holding it together. My mother, Diane Carter, knew exactly how to control a room without raising her voice. She didn't ask for help, she implied it was my duty. Every conversation with her felt like a quiet negotiation I was already losing. My father, Richard Carter, was a different kind of problem. Charming when he needed to be, reckless when it mattered most. Gambling debts followed him like a shadow, and somehow, I was always the one expected to make them disappear. Then there was my older sister, Vanessa. She didn't pretend. She believed I owed her. Always had. They didn't see me as successful. They saw me as useful. And the more I gave, the more they took, until helping them stopped feeling like love, and started feeling like obligation. I should have questioned it sooner. But I didn't. And that delay was exactly what they were counting on. Looking back, the first sign wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, almost easy to ignore. It happened a week before the trip to Paris. Vanessa asked me for access to one of my secure document folders, said she needed help reviewing a job opportunity. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was how specific she was about which files she wanted. Financial statements. Identity records. Even scanned copies of my passport. I hesitated. For a second, something felt off. A quiet instinct, the same one I trusted in every investigation, whispered that this didn't add up. Don't overthink it, she said, smiling like it was nothing. You're always so paranoid. And I let it go. I gave her access. Because it was easier than questioning her, easier than dealing with the tension that always followed when I said no. That was the moment the line blurred between trust and vulnerability. I didn't know it yet. But I had just handed her the first piece of the trap they were building around me. The humiliation didn't come all at once. It unfolded slowly, like something rehearsed. At the airport in Paris, everything felt normal, until it didn't. We had just checked in when my mother suddenly sighed, loud enough for others to hear. "Evelyn, are you sure you're okay?" she asked, her voice soft but calculated. I frowned. "What do you mean?" Vanessa stepped closer, placing a hand on my arm like I was fragile. "You've been off lately. We're worried." I felt it immediately, eyes turning, people watching. My father shook his head like he'd seen this before. "It's happening again," he muttered. "Again?" My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" But they didn't answer me. They spoke around me. About me. Like I wasn't even there. And in that moment, surrounded by strangers, I wasn't a professional. I wasn't in control. I was a problem. I should have walked away right then. But I didn't. Because I still believed this was just a misunderstanding. I had no idea, it was already the beginning of something much worse. I didn't realize they were gone until it was too quiet. 1 second, they were there, whispering, watching me like I was unstable. The next, empty space. No calls. No messages. Just silence. At first, I thought it was another one of their manipulative games. Then security approached me. Polite. Controlled. But firm. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." My stomach dropped. Why? They didn't answer directly. Just asked for my bag. I watched as they opened it, calm on the outside, but something inside me was starting to fracture. And then they found it. A passport. Not mine. Reported stolen. The air shifted instantly. Their tone changed. Eyes hardened. Procedures activated. "I didn't put that there," I said, but even to my own ears, it sounded distant. Because suddenly, nothing I said mattered. Within minutes, I wasn't a passenger anymore. I was a suspect. And somewhere out there, my family already knew exactly how this would play out. The worst part? I was starting to understand it too. The first hours in custody felt unreal. Cold walls. Fluorescent lights that never dimmed. Questions repeating in cycles, each one designed to break consistency, to expose a lie I wasn't telling. But I didn't panic. I couldn't. Because somewhere between the accusation and the silence that followed, something shifted inside me. They weren't just trying to scare me. They were buying time. 48 hours. That was the window before I could properly contact anyone, before I could defend myself. And suddenly, every detail started aligning in my head like numbers in a ledger. The airport scene. The public concern. The passport. This wasn't chaos. It was structure. A plan. And if there was a plan, there was a purpose. Sitting there, alone, I closed my eyes and replayed everything. Every word, every look, every request from the past week. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about embarrassment. This was about control. And for the first time, I stopped reacting. I started thinking. Because if they had built a trap for me, then they had just stepped into one I hadn't even set yet. By the second night, the fear was gone. Not because the situation got better, but because I finally understood it. This wasn't impulsive. It was coordinated. The false concern at the airport, the planted passport, the timing of my isolation, it all pointed to something bigger than humiliation. Then I remembered my grandmother's will. A specific clause: if I became incapacitated or unreachable for 48 hours, temporary control of her estate would shift to my parents. $2.5 million. That was the real target. And suddenly, everything made sense. The lies they were already spreading about my mental collapse. The silence. The urgency. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to replace me. I sat there, staring at the wall, and made a decision no one would ever see coming. I wasn't going to fight back emotionally. I wasn't going to defend myself right away. I was going to let them believe they had one. Because the only way to destroy a lie is to let it grow big enough to expose itself. And I was ready to wait. From the outside, it looked like I was finished. No statements. No calls. No defense. Exactly what they needed. I could almost see it unfolding, my mother speaking to the estate administrator, calm and convincing, presenting documents about my mental instability. My father backing her story, rehearsed, desperate. Vanessa amplifying it online, turning silence into proof. They weren't just taking control of the money. They were rewriting who I was. And the more I imagined it, the clearer their psychology became. They needed me to disappear quietly. No resistance. No contradictions. Because if I spoke too soon, the timeline would collapse. So I didn't. I stayed still. Observing. Letting them build their version of reality. Not because I was powerless. Because I was measuring them. Their urgency. Their greed. Their confidence. People reveal everything when they think they've already won. And my family? They were about to show me exactly how far they were willing to go. The only question was, how much would they risk before they couldn't turn back? I stopped fighting the situation and started studying it. Every report I could indirectly access, every timestamp, every legal filing attempt, they all formed a pattern I already knew how to read. My family wasn't acting randomly. They were escalating with purpose. My mother pushed the narrative of my mental breakdown harder each hour. My father moved fast on the estate channels, trying to trigger emergency access. Vanessa, as always, focused on reputation destruction, posting vague stories online, carefully worded to make me sound unstable without saying anything legally dangerous. It was impressive, in a pathetic way. They coordinated like people who believed they were untouchable. But I noticed something important: their coordination had gaps. Rush creates mistakes. Overconfidence creates exposure. And they were doing both. The more they pushed, the more evidence they created. False claims. Fake concern. Financial pressure on legal administrators. I didn't interrupt it. I let it breathe. Because I wasn't just watching them anymore. I was mapping where each lie would eventually collapse. And once a structure like this starts leaning, it doesn't fall in pieces. It falls all at once. I didn't need to escape. Not yet. The system around me was already leaking. From inside custody, I requested exactly one thing: a formal review of the passport evidence chain. Not an accusation. Not a defense. Just procedure. Cold. Clinical. The kind of request that forces documentation to surface. That was enough. Because forged evidence always has a trail. Meanwhile, I contacted no one in my family. Instead, I reached out through a secure channel to a former legal consultant I had worked with on fraud cases. He didn't ask emotional questions. He only asked for data. So I gave him one sentence: check every action tied to my identity in the last 72 hours. And I waited. Outside my isolation, my family kept accelerating their story. My mother escalating medical claims. My father pushing estate urgency. Vanessa feeding public perception like fuel. They thought speed was their advantage. But speed is also exposure. Every lie they rushed left a timestamp. And timestamps don't lie. By the time I finished that thought, I already knew something simple and dangerous. They weren't just trying to replace me anymore. They were trying to outrun the truth. It started with a single message from my consultant: they made mistakes. Not details. Not explanations. Just that. And that was enough. Because in fraud cases, mistakes are never small. They're entry points. While I sat behind locked procedures, my family kept moving faster outside. Too fast. My mother submitted a psychiatric affidavit describing symptoms she had never witnessed in a clinical setting. My father signed financial authorization forms that required conditions I had never met. Vanessa pushed a narrative online that subtly suggested I had always been unstable. Every step was louder than the last. And every step created a contradiction. Then came the complication. The estate administrator requested verification directly from me. A standard safeguard they hadn't anticipated. My silence was no longer neutral, it was now a legal variable. If I responded, I could interrupt their momentum. If I didn't, their story advanced. For the first time, I saw a fracture in their plan. They had accounted for my disappearance. They had not accounted for my awareness. And somewhere in that gap was where everything would break. The administrator's verification request changed everything. If I answered immediately, I could stop them. But stopping them early would only expose fragments. I needed the full structure of their fraud, not pieces of it. So I did something none of them expected. I stayed silent. And in that silence, I made my first sacrifice, my reputation in real time. Every hour I didn't respond allowed their narrative to harden. My mother's claims became concerned testimony. My father's signatures became urgent protection measures. Vanessa's posts started attracting attention, reshaping how people saw me before I could correct it. It hurt more than I expected. But I held it. Because behind the scenes, my consultant confirmed what I needed: forged passport chain, inconsistent timestamps, and unauthorized financial activation attempts tied directly to my family's submissions. Proof was forming. Real proof. Not accusations. Not suspicion. Evidence that would hold in court. I finally replied to the administrator, but not to defend myself. I asked for one thing only: a full freeze on all pending actions until external verification was completed. And then I waited again. Because the trap wasn't ready yet. But I could feel it closing. When I was finally released, I didn't go home. I didn't contact my family. I went straight into controlled preparation. With the billionaire investor's help, calm, precise, and disturbingly efficient, we created a shell investment company. On paper, it looked legitimate: fast capital, urgent opportunity, exclusive access. The kind of deal my parents would never resist. The offer was simple. A short-term loan tied to a single condition: they had to sign a legal declaration stating I was mentally incapacitated at the time of the airport incident. My lawyer ensured the clause was airtight. If they signed it, they would be formally admitting perjury and fraud in a financial context. We didn't send it all at once. We let it circulate through their greed first. And it worked exactly as expected. My father saw money. My mother saw control. Vanessa saw validation. They stopped asking questions. And scheduled the meeting. All I had to do now was show up at the right moment. Because traps don't work when they're set. They work when they close. The meeting happened in a private conference room downtown, exactly as planned. My parents were already there when I arrived. My mother sat perfectly composed, my father restless, and Vanessa watching everything like she was waiting for applause. On the table, the loan agreement. Thick, final, irreversible. My father leaned forward immediately. This is it. We sign, we get access, and everything stabilizes. My mother didn't even look at me. She's not well enough to interfere anyway. Vanessa smiled. It's already over. They believed it. They actually believed it. Then the investor arrived, calm and silent, placing a second folder on the table. Before signatures, he said, "There's one required verification step." He opened it. Inside, every forged document, every timestamp contradiction, every estate filing they had submitted under false claims. Highlighted. Verified. Ready. The room changed instantly. My father froze. This is illegal. No, I said quietly, stepping forward for the first time. What's illegal is what you already signed when you lied about me. My mother finally looked at me, confused, then afraid. Vanessa reached for her phone. This is a setup. It already recorded your device access, the investor interrupted. Including the stolen data you tried to use against her career. Silence. Then sirens outside. And in that moment, for the first time, they understood they weren't in control anymore. The police didn't rush in dramatically. They entered with paperwork first, then reality followed. My mother was arrested for fraud, identity manipulation, and filing false medical claims to seize control of an estate. The psychiatric evidence she had submitted was exposed as fabricated statements signed under pressure and false representation. My father collapsed the moment the financial investigator read the charges out loud: attempted financial fraud, perjury in estate proceedings, and conspiracy to illegally transfer assets. The gambling debts that had quietly controlled his decisions were fully documented: bank transfers, offshore attempts, everything. Vanessa fought the hardest. She tried to justify the stolen passport, the data she accessed from my accounts, the narrative she built online. It didn't matter anymore. The digital forensics tied her directly to unauthorized access of my devices and the intentional planting of the passport in my bag at the airport. That act alone confirmed coordinated fraud and obstruction. There were no loose ends. Every claim they made against me was dismantled with timestamps, access logs, witness statements, and verified financial trails. The estate administrator officially froze all transfers before any money could be moved. The $2.5 million from my grandmother's inheritance remained untouched, and legally reverted fully to me once the fraud was confirmed. The billionaire investor never asked for anything beyond what was agreed. His role ended where it started, providing structure, not control. The case he needed my expertise for, corporate fraud inside one of his holdings, was resolved alongside mine. We separated professionally with mutual respect, no dependency, no debt between us. The legal aftermath was clean and final. My mother received a multi-year sentence for coordinated financial fraud. My father faced conviction tied to perjury and financial conspiracy, with penalties including asset seizure. Vanessa was charged with identity theft, digital intrusion, and evidence tampering. There was no dramatic reconciliation. No apology that meant anything. Just consequences. When it was over, I didn't go back to my family. There was nothing there to return to. Instead, I booked a flight to Paris alone. Not as escape. As closure. The same city where they tried to erase me became the place I chose for myself again, this time, without them writing the story. I sat by the window during takeoff and finally understood something simple. They didn't lose because I was stronger. They lost because they believed I would always stay silent. And I stopped. Final question: when silence is mistaken for weakness, how many people use it to destroy you before they realize it was strategy all along? If this story made you feel something, don't just move on, like the video so more people can experience it, subscribe for more intense stories like this, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you think she should have done differently.